Hey everyone, this is Chris.
And Lorenzo.
And welcome to our Best of Saturday series. Now that we have hundreds of episodes, we get a lot of listeners asking us where to start.
So we'll be selecting some of our most popular episodes to share each Saturday from our years of podcasting. We hope you enjoy it.
No role plays, just real. Chris and Lorenzo share 4 decades of combined experience to help you become a more effective leader.
We've never really, as a workforce, spent a lot of time on making sure we're developing good leaders.
We'll be able to share stories, experience, mistakes, failures, successes.
This is Hacking Your Leadership.
Welcome to Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lorenzo.
Lorenzo, I recently signed a company with my consulting business. And one of the first things they asked me was, what kind of tools have I used to increase employee engagement in other companies? And I want to give them an answer. I want to tell them the kinds of tools that have worked in the past. But I also was very quickly seeing, as they were feverishly jotting down notes about, they wanted to know what they could just take with them and start doing immediately. What they could start implementing. And that can be kind of scary a little bit because, the impression that I got was that their idea of creating engagement was using the tools that have worked to engage employees in other places and implementing them at their company. Mm-hmm. And, on the one hand, great. If you have leadership that is truly invested and committed to engaging employees and making the work environment a better place to work, then that's a great place to start. There are some people that have a problem even with that. But I was very quick to caution them about not allowing the tool to try to create the culture, but instead creating a culture that, or enabling a culture rather, that creates tools. And it might sound like semantics, but I think there's a really big difference.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think the idea around culture and within a team, an organization, a business, how that functions is defined by those that are involved in it, right? So I think that you've got teams that are doing really well with certain things, and you talk to them, and of course the right behaviors to find out what's going on, right? Seek to understand, see what they're doing to win in certain categories, and you get a best practice. And I think that, the tempting thing to do is what you kind of just explained, which is I'm going to go do whatever they're doing and then do that with my team and make it come to life and get the same result. And while that may happen from time to time, I think the reality is, what is driving, whatever tool is driving that type of a result within their culture, many times it doesn't translate over into the culture that you have with your team. So, as an example, I've had, best practices from other stores, and people talk about things like, what we do here is when people have a good week or something like that, or people are performing well in certain areas, we give them, wristbands, and these wristbands are kind of created and customized in a way that's, it's about our team and it's about the recognition thing. And I go, wow, it's a cool idea. You're kind of taking recognition and you're making it visual, and you're letting people want to work together and achieve towards something. And that's a cool tool. Like it's a cool tool that you're doing to inspire your team to do better. But I know if I was to just take those wristbands and show up at, with my team the next day and say, hey, here's what we're going to do now. We're going to just give wristbands to everybody when they do a good job. People are like, well, what are you talking about? Like what do you mean wristbands, right? Like we don't understand, right? And so I think the idea in borrowing tools, or at least the idea of tools, is that you find out what's going on, and then, in my opinion, you then collaborate with your team. You say like, hey, here's another team that's having some great success around this thing. Maybe something that we're not having the success that they're having, or maybe it's an opportunity for us. Here's what they're doing. Here's who's leading this work. what do you think about this? Is this something that you feel would work here in our store? Or is there something that we can do that's different? Or is there something that we can borrow from the idea, but tweak it to kind of fit what our teams, enjoy, or what our teams would find value in? And then you allow your culture to enable the tool that's going to work for your team.
What I'm basically hearing is that ownership equals buy-in. This isn't about the effectiveness of wristbands. It's about the effectiveness of letting a team come up with what they believe works for themselves and letting them own it and run with it. Mm-hmm. So the wristband is incidental. I know you remember more than a decade ago now, asking employees in a store to design a really large piece of artwork for a big meeting that we're all getting together for, and it was just this enormous wall where the graffiti wall. All the employees contributed. It took days, and each person was invited to come in and draw something on it and kind of create it on their own. And the meeting was a huge success. And then after the meeting ended, one of the vice presidents from another area of the company very seriously came up to me and said, if I price out what it would cost to have that wall shipped into my area for my meeting in a couple of weeks, would you be open to that? And and I just my mouth almost hit the floor. It was like, it's not about the graffiti wall. It's about the employees in that room being able to sit at that meeting and feel like they owned it and feel like they created that wall. You bringing it to your area and sticking it up for your meeting 3 weeks later, no one in that room cares. No one in that room made that wall. They're not going to care about it. Maybe it would work to do it in your area if they wanted to make it, but maybe not. We didn't come up with the idea of the wall. The employees did. And they're the ones who said, this is what I want to do. This is what we think will work. And they made it themselves. And that's why it worked. So the wall or the wristband or the tool, it really doesn't matter. It's about the level of buy-in and the level of ownership that you get from the employees who created it.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point. And the reality was, like, kind of the message behind the message, right? Was that the wall in itself was sitting on the background around working with our leaders to inspire them to better understand the talents and the passions that our people have.
Sure.
And that when we embrace those and we bring them on the journey and we say, we want you to come and bring all of you here, and we want you to share the things that you're passionate about and share these great talents that you have. And then we want to be able to harness some of that and allow you to do some of that work kind of in your day job, to drive a more positive, enriching culture within our buildings. Like, that was the message behind the message. So
right.
When that wall went up, and I remember that wall was like 20 feet high by like 100 feet. Like, it was gigantic, right?
That's huge.
And it was in all those different panels. Like, that was cool to look at, and it looked awesome, and it was awe-inspiring, and it was amazing. But I know in that room of the local leaders there, what that wall was actually about was saying, this is why we have to inspire and engage and empower our people, to help lead through some of the work that we're doing. Because when we give that to them, they create things like this, which are unbelievable, and we never would have thought of this. And that was kind of the message behind it. So I think it's a great point that you talk about it, because that doesn't show up well if we just ship a part of the wall somewhere. People are like, "Oh, that's cool, man. Some guy spray painted on a big, huge thing here," but they don't really have the context of the story. Versus if that same leader went back and said, let me show you what they did. Let me show you what these amazing employees came up with. And let me give you some context on what this was all about. What can we do here that would help our teams understand the capabilities of our people and what they're passionate about, and how we need to get better at harnessing all of that passion to help us move our business forward.
Right. So it's like saying to your employees, I'm not just looking at you for what you can do to help me and what you can do to affect this business. I'm looking at you in all of your humanity and all of what you can bring and all of what's important to you and all of what's important to your family and what you're passionate about. Because if you're able to incorporate all that into my business and you don't have to separate the two, all of it is going to win. The business is going to be better. You're going to be happier. The results are going to be there. All of this is going to happen. So when leaders say to the employees, I want you you create these tools that work best for you. What you're in essence saying is, I'm not just looking at you for what you can do for me. I want to be there to do something for you as well. And when you take a tool that works one place and just try to implement it somewhere else, what you're in essence saying is, I don't have what it takes to get to know my people. I don't know my people. I don't know what they would create, or it's not important to me. It's not important to me. What's important to me is the result. The result of what I'm looking at, the scorecard getting better, the profitability getting higher. That is my goal. My goal isn't to make every employee here feel like they're bringing their individual selves to work and that their individual selves are honored. When you start with that being the goal, the profitability comes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that, it amazes me, right? When you pass on, or when you empower your people and you bring them along in the journey, and you take the time to ask for their ideas and brainstorm with them and share some of the things that are going on, what they come up with, and it's amazing, and it's genuine, and it's and it's localized in a way that there are many things that my team does that would only work with my team. Right, and right, and that to them it makes sense, and to them it feels real, and to them it's a cool way to recognize our people, and our people are behind it, or it's a nickname, or it's something that we call something here with this team, and other people hear it and they're like, well, that's kind of silly, and that's okay, right? Because it's not
don't
about,
do it. Yeah,
right.
If it's silly to you, don't do it. It wasn't meant for
cool.
you anyway. It was meant for the people who created it.
Right, which is kind of like what you started, this podcast with, was that idea of that the culture creates the tools, and then those tools become valuable because then they help sustain and grow the culture by creating more inspiration for more people to move things forward, and that's a really big part of leadership. And I think that many times leaders, to what you just said, leaders will default to, look, I got to get this result. You know what I mean? I've got to get this thing fixed. And if somebody else out there is doing it a certain way and they're getting it like, the easy way, or what we would call the lazy way, might be copy and paste, right? Let me take what they're doing and try to put it in here. And while based upon your team, they may be, great at speed to execution. They may be good at like, well, let's just go ahead and do it because that's what my boss wants or my boss's boss wants. You may see an upward tick on the short term. But the reality is, if you don't want to have to address that issue again a couple of weeks later, a month later, or when something else becomes important, you really have to enable the culture to understand that we need to do this together. We need to find out a solution that works for us, long term, and that allows us to maintain what it is that we're trying to either repair, fix, or increase. You might be good at it now. You just want to be better. But for you to have a longer term strategy and plan, it really has to come from your team, and they have to have the ownership or the buy-in or the understanding of what you're trying to accomplish long term.
So if I'm a leader, what I'm hearing basically is it's a good idea to look at people who are doing better than you are and call them and email them and ask them and find out why. So if we're telling people that's the right thing to do, you're supposed to do that. Yep. But then what they tell you, don't do that thing. So, I mean, you understand, like if you're a leader and you're hearing this, if the solution is yes, call the people who know how to execute well, find out why they're executing well, find out what they're doing that's getting them the results. But on the same token, if you just take that and bring it back and tell your team to execute it, you're not going to get the same level of buy-in that you would if they created it themselves. Well, if that's the case, then what's the point of even calling the people who are doing well to find out what they're doing?
Yeah, no, I think some things do carry over. So as an example, if you're not following the behaviors that are expected, if you're not aligned with what your organization or your boss is saying, like, this is what we want you to do, like these are the minimum expectations of the behaviors that we expect and the strategy that you should be implementing, like that's a different conversation, right? Because like those things, absolutely. If we are saying that your people should do A, B, and C, and that's what the company is asking you to do, well, then you should be spending your time validating and following up on A, B, and C, right? Like that's just what that is. That's not a tool of a culture. That's just an expectation of the role. I think what we're talking about are the things that, that you've called and you've gotten a best practice from somebody, and they say, well, yeah, like this is how we recognize people here, or this is how we've kind of created this strategy within the space of what we can create to drive something, or to increase awareness, or to increase engagement from our team. And the idea is to find out, okay, well, what is it exactly? Who's leading that work? Kind of where did the idea spark from? And why do you feel that this is working in your space? And then what I say is take that information and go back to your team with it. So it's not, maybe it is copy and paste. Maybe your team says, man, that's a great idea. We've never thought about that before. What a fantastic approach to this work. I think this would work here. Awesome. Let's just go ahead and take it and let's just do it. Right. But having that conversation, having that collaboration, bringing people along with the journey is extremely important to make sure that you vet these things, so that you're not just throwing stuff constantly at your team to say, well, just go do this. Now just go do this. Now just go do this. But it's like, let's talk through this and what makes sense here. And how do we feel about this? Because at the end of the day, what we're trying to accomplish and the goal is not going to change or go away. We have to get there. But here is where others are finding some success, and what can we borrow, take, or emulate here in our space that would be similar, that would also allow us to see the same type of growth or increase in what we're trying to go after.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and I think it's a balancing act, and there isn't just kind of one right way of doing things, but the key seems to be making sure that nothing is dictated. But in essence, it's created together as a team in order to get that buy-in.
Absolutely.
And with that, it looks like it's time for today's 1 Minute Hack.
The 1 Minute Hack.
All right, so today's 1 minute hack is fairly simple. If you find yourself as a leader in a space where you are trying to increase a result, overcome an opportunity, and or, just bring in different elements to your business that you feel might be, healthy in regards to the experience of your people, or the experience of your customers, or the experience of the overall culture. When you reach out and when you get some of these ideas, tools, thoughts, examples, strategies from wherever you get them from, make sure you bring them back to your team, explain the why of what it is that we're trying to accomplish, talk about where we see success in other areas of other businesses or other stores or other teams, and bring them along in the conversation to talk about the idea that we must see an increase in result, or we must overcome this opportunity together. And here's some great examples of other places that are finding success with this. What can we borrow? What can we take? Or what can we possibly utilize as inspiration for us to create our own tool that works for our own culture within our own buildings?
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think, just to maybe add something to that, it might even be beneficial as a leader to give examples that aren't related. Maybe come up with 2 or 3 best practices from different areas of the business that give people the impression that you're not trying to steer them down a certain road, but in actuality, you're just trying to get them to think outside the box and figure out what's going to work best for their team. So don't just give 3 examples of stores that are doing all the exact same thing, because then what you're basically saying to them is, this is what we're going to do here. Yep. But if you give 3 examples that are completely unrelated, 3 different best practices or tools that are being used in completely different ways, that could do a lot to kind of get the conversation going, And then if you have some really talented people, it's incredible what they can come up with.
Yeah, and I think we talked about it a few episodes ago, right? We're looking for consistency of the result, not necessarily consistency of the strategy. That's gonna adjust based upon your culture and what's going on. But at the end of the day, we're trying to create an environment where the results across the board from team to team are very similar and on the same trends.
Yeah, that's really important to remember.
Cool. And with that, thanks for listening. This is Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Lorenzo.
And I'm Chris.
And we'll talk to you guys next time.